and make sure I got all that and muted all. And for now, Mo, I've got everybody muted in the room. That way we can have good sound quality. And then, of course, guys, at any point in time, if you've got a question for Mo or want her to clarify something, feel free, of course, to unmute yourself and come into the room. And if you want to, then you can mute yourself back when we get started. So, Mo, thank you for being here. I'm going to.
And you're Ryan.
Yes, I'm Ryan.
Oh, I'm so excited to see you, Ryan. And how many do you have in your market center?
We've got about 180 associates in our market center.
We've only got 27 on the call. Do they not like me?
They love you, Mo. I've got folks joining as we come into Zoom, and we've got folks that are on our Facebook Live group as well. So a couple of different options for them to partake.
Awesome.
So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mo Anderson. Originally, Mo was a music teacher. She taught for 14 years before entering the real estate field, and she partnered with a couple of folks and established her first real estate office with Century 21 in Edmond, Oklahoma. And that was in 1975, and it became the third, guys, listen to this, the third top producing office out of 7,500 Century 21 franchise locations in North America.
So she might know something.
She might know a thing or two. So in 1986, that company was sold to Merrill Lynch, where she served as a district vice president until December of 1989. And in 1992, our company had the huge fortune of Mo joining Keller Williams Realty. And in 1995, just 3 years later, she was offered the executive roles of president, chief executive officer, and co-owner. Additionally, Mo wrote a book. She's got an autobiography called A Joy-Filled Life. And that book has served as the catalyst for a multi-year book tour, right, Mo? And where she's presented her 7 pillars of a joy-filled life to audiences ranging from book clubs to corporate Fortune 500 events. Within KW, she continues to host our inspirational breakfast at Keller Williams Family Reunion to an audience over, 15,000, 17,000 folks. And Mo, we just had our inspirational virtual team meeting this morning, and we'll talk about that later on when we're talking about Red Day. She also holds the annual Culture Summit, which is dedicated to recognizing individuals who carry the torch of our KW company culture. And so Mo, and she just continues as the beloved shining star of KW's culture and leading and nurturing the company's culture for a new era of some of these folks, Mo, that may never have even seen you from stage or heard you speak. So Mo Anderson, welcome to Northeast Tennessee. Thank you for virtually being here. And Kathy, can I mute you? Oaks. And let me get Mo up here in a speaker view.
Well, darling, I'm just going to take you everywhere I go so I can have you introduce me. That was great.
So
you
Mo,
make me sound better than I really am.
No, you're amazing. So Mo, what drew you to join Gary Keller back in 1992?
Well, can I go back a little bit further?
Of course.
Just a teeny bit further.
Yeah.
In the late 80s in Oklahoma, And Oklahoma is part of the oil patch. Do you know what I mean when I use the term oil patch? It's like Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Louisiana. I love oil companies. You know, a lot of people on the East Coast hate oil companies. So don't anybody say something bad to me about oil companies, because I grew up in the oil patch and I love those hardworking people. And I just, you know, they make billions of money one year and the next 2 years they don't make a dime. It's just so risky, and I just admire them so much because they work so hard. Anyway, I love them. So the oil went down to $8 a barrel and our economy shut down. Now, we didn't have the government making us stay in our homes and not letting us go to church or synagogue or temple or mosque or wherever you go. But the economy is like it is right now. It was shut down. And it's really interesting because now I look back on that oil bust, and what actually happened is it set up a set of circumstances whereby Gary Keller accidentally, it was really a God thing, but quote, accidentally found me, that lucky guy. I mean, he was lucky. Well, it was a God thing, so he really wasn't lucky. But do you get my point?
Yes, ma'am.
So in the midst of this adversity, something really good's going to happen for you, because that's what always happens in adversity. I've been through a million of them in my life, and it always has something glorious coming out of it. So when I met Gary Keller, I was so attracted to his Y4C2Ts because it was the first time in my life I had ever seen a business lay out a foundational piece that was could become the foundation of a culture. And if you look at the Y4C2Ts, you see every single one of them are actually biblically based. Win-win or no deal. Trust begins with honesty. And all these little things we say are actually eternal truths that will always be true. Now, we may change the way we function in our culture, but we will never not have our foundation. So it was really the Y4C2Ts that attracted me to what he was doing. First time he showed that to me, I was blown away. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. So it's like we're having a little conversation, just me and you hanging out by the fire. In 1995, you became CEO of KW, and Gary talks about, as the CEO of our own company and our own life, that we create a vision and we engage talent and we own those results. And it's remarkable that you took KW from 35 market centers to more than 530 within a 10-year span.
It was really, let's see, when I got there in 95, there were 40 market centers and I closed 15 of them. So I took it down to 25. So it was 25 to over 500 in a 10-year span. We went from 1,800 agents to 50,000 during my little tenure. And at the end of the 10 years, I was worn out.
Was that your vision?
Yeah, 500 offices and 50,000 people. When I told myself, when I hit my mark, that's my mark, you know, for growth. Then I want to be active in the company, but I don't want to have to be there every day because it was really beginning to take a toll on my health. You know, I have a trophy for what I did, and it's called a pacemaker. And so, you know, I was beginning to have some issues. So, but you know what? I want to tell you all something. In those early days, those of us who built the company, when I took over, there were 7 on the staff, and I dehired, I think 3 of them, 3 or 4 of them. I've kind of forgotten. And then, you know, Yale and Harvard and Princeton and all those big shots, they were writing white papers about how stupid our model was. And I'd go to the big boy meetings, and when they'd see Keller Williams on my name badge, they would just turn around and walk away in the middle of a sentence because they thought anybody who was with Keller Williams was really stupid. And I was kind of the only one in the world, other than Gary, who really believed that the models would work. And the reason why I believed they would work is because in the company I built that he told you about was the number 3 producing office out of 7,500 offices. I was profit sharing on 2 levels. I had an ALC, but I didn't call it an ALC, but it functioned like Gary's ALCs. And I had an economic model, but when I saw Gary's economic model, I knew it was somewhat recession proof. And boy, I knew that I knew that I knew. I never doubted it, and I was the fastest recruit in the history of Keller Williams. Now, in those early days, we crossed streams, we forded rivers, so to speak, and had arrows shot in our backs like you wouldn't believe. And we'd just reach back and pull the arrow out, so to speak. And as bad as it hurt to pull the arrow out, we just kept marching forward, man. We weren't going to stop. I believed in the models, and I knew it would work, and I wasn't going to stop. You know, now the truth is, in this situation, everybody in Keller Williams is a pioneer now. Because
what do you mean by that?
We are forced with having to create new ways to do business. Whoever thought that we would need booties, gloves, and a mask to go into a home? Who would have ever thought we could have sold a house by showing the buyer a virtual tour and they only drove by the house? And we've got agents who get it, that they're pioneers now, and they're fording new streams and new rivers, and they're walking through new forests that have different kind of trees we've never seen before, so to speak.
Sure.
Do you get my point?
Yes, ma'am.
Shake your heads, because I'm looking at y'all. And so it's exciting because now everybody's a pioneer. And let me tell you what a pioneer does. They never, 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 never quit. And they kick fear out of their heads so that they can march through those rivers, so they can go through that forest and figure out a way to get through the underbrush without it killing them. That's what pioneers do, is they don't ever quit. They keep going onward, like your background, Ryan, says onward. You're a little Gary Keller, aren't you, darling? Because that's his word.
Yep.
See, I can call you darling because I'm going to be 83 2 days before Red Day. So I get to say anything I want because I'm going to be 83. Anyway, being a pioneer is part of the DNA of Keller Williams. So you need to think of yourself as a pioneer. And I'm hearing all these glorious things that, agents are doing to get business. Yesterday, I was on a call with a guy in the leadership group from Michigan, and he was telling me about an agent who finally got his head screwed on straight. And he decided that if he would make these calls to his sphere of influence, do the care call first and then start hitting them with care and business, he decided he was going to get 10 listings. He had 10 in his head that would happen. And I'm going to tell you in a minute 4 truths about your head that I want you to clearly understand, because he understood it and he went out and did it. He ended up getting 11 listings. He never went to one house. The seller showed him the house, what is it, through FaceTime or something,
Sure.
you know, where he went around and showed him that house on all 11 of them. And he would email the listing agreement to them. They would scan it back, signed. Picked up 11 listings because he had his head screwed on straight and because he got off his duff and did something.
Yeah.
So if you say that you don't have any fear in this deal, you're lying. You're telling a fib. Everybody has fear in these kind of deals. I have fear. I've done a good job of saving money through the years, but I've got to support 3 market centers that I have ownership in. I've got to support an entire region, and I need to support an international office. So the fear that just enveloped me when all of this happened was, have I saved enough money to be able to support everything? Do you understand?
Yes.
Some people have lost their jobs and they have fear they're not going to be able to feed their families. And did you see the line of people? They showed it on TV to go to a food bank to get food for their families. I'm telling you, fear paralyzes you. And the way you get rid of fear, I mean, there are lots of ways. And I only know how I get rid of it. So can I share how I get rid of it?
Yes, ma'am. Please do.
I lean into my faith. Now, other people do different things. And I don't care how you do it. Just get rid of the fear. Because you'll be paralyzed as long as you have that nasty fear. And what I learned a scripture verse when I was a little kid, and it's in 2 Timothy, I think, but I've forgotten the chapter and I've forgotten the verse. And it says, God has not given you a spirit of fear. That fear isn't from God. I think you know who it's from. All right. And he says, I have given you a spirit of power, meaning confidence and fire in your belly to feed your family and to have a college fund for your grandkids or your kids or whatever. He says, I've given you a spirit of power and of love. And you all have experienced love in Keller Williams. Every now and then you just experience a big old sweet dose of it. And then he says, I've given you a spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. Now, I want to tell you the 4 truths about a sound mind. So if you have a pencil and paper, I want you to write these down. Truth number 1. When you change your mind, it will change the outer aspects of your life. When this agent changed his mind that he could get business during the coronavirus thing, he ended up with 11 listings. That's a beautiful example of truth number 1. Truth number 2. There's a direct correlation between what the mind sees and your results. See, he saw 10 listings, and it was really in his head. Truth number 3, or truth number, I think I'm on number 2. there's a direct correlation between what you visualize and the results you achieve. Here's the real truth number 2. When you believe something is true, when you really believe it, it creates adrenaline in your body, and it just kind of leads you to do what you need to be doing, like making your calls to your sphere of influence, like twice a week. I want to tell you about to demonstrate this, I want to tell you about an agent I talked to last week from Ocala. She was in the market center meeting like we're in today. And she said she'd gotten rid of the fear. And when she made her first care call, she said, y'all, I've just been, concerned about you, and I want to know how you are, and I want to know if there's anything you need, or if you think of anything you need, call me back. You may need some time to think about it. And she got a bunch of calls back. And she told just one story. I think she got 4 or 5 callbacks. But this woman who was in her sphere of influence said, I desperately need somebody to go pick up my prescriptions and bring them to me. And because her mind was free of fear, she said, well, what's your address? And she had her email, but she didn't have her address. And then she realized the woman was in Ocala and she was in Orlando, and it was over an hour away. And so, but she didn't let fear come in.
Yep.
And she said, well, I'll get back with you. So she hung up the phone and she thought, I got to find me some Uber drivers in Ocala. And she went on Facebook and found a group of Uber drivers who had a little Facebook group in Ocala. She calls one of them and she says, how far are you away from my woman? And he said, about 2 minutes. How far are you away from the drugstore? She'd gotten the address. He said about 3 minutes. Long story short, the woman had her medication in less than 30 minutes.
Wow.
Now that created a bond between her and her real estate agent, folks, that will never be broken. She thinks that agent is a literal hero.
Right.
So see, it was because she had a sound mind that she was able to figure all that out. That's creative. I said, honey, you go look in the mirror and say, darling, you're really smart, because it popped into her mind. That's what she should do. And that's what's going to happen to you when you get rid of your fear, when you totally get rid of this fear. And you understand that there is a way of making sales and doing good. Do you know some of our areas had the biggest March they've ever had? Well, they can have the biggest April they've ever had if they get rid of their fear.
Yeah.
And get a sound mind. The third truth about a sound mind, when the alligators are all around you and they're just nipping the heck out of you, it is really hard to think about a positive picture. I've been there and done that, in the oil crash, let me tell you. But I kept saying, we will build back and we will build bigger than ever before. And I said that 10 billion times. And the first time I would say it, I never believed it. But the more I said it, the more I started believing it. It's like act enthusiastic and you will be enthusiastic. Hey, that's true. If you'll act enthusiastic in about an hour, if you keep acting enthusiastic for an hour or two, you'll suddenly realize you really are enthusiastic. Same is true. I kept saying, we're going to build back. We're going to build back. We're going to build back. And all of a sudden, I started believing it. And I didn't know God was doing stuff with Gary Keller so he could find me. I had no idea that was happening. Are you getting it? Shake your heads if you're getting it.
Yeah.
Because when you have those alligators nipping at your feet, the hardest thing in the world to do is to think positive. But if you'll keep saying it and saying it and saying it and saying it, you'll finally believe it. It's like people finally tell a lie so much that they begin to believe their own lie. You've heard of that, and you've known people who kind of did that.
Sure.
Well, just use it as a positive force in your life. So now you know the 4 truths of a sound mind. And I want to tell you one more story. Can I, before you go to your next question?
Yes, ma'am,
Right.
of course.
Okay. 4 weeks ago, I had extensive surgery in my sinuses because I fought infection in those. I have some sort of had some sort of a sinus disease that I just had infection all the time for about 2.5 years. And they finally did extensive surgery and I'm infection free.
You look
Praise
good.
the Lord. Anyway, I had to have distilled water.
Mm-hmm.
And distilled water was critical to my post-surgery stuff. I had to rinse 3 times a day with distilled water. Well, it never occurred to me that people were going to hoard distilled water. I knew they had hoarded the toilet paper, and I still haven't figured that one out. But never did I dream they would hoard distilled water. So the guy that helps us, he went to every grocery store in the whole wide world trying to find distilled water, and the shelves were bare.
Wow.
And a Keller Williams agent heard I needed distilled water. And because she was free of fear, she picked up the phone, she called all of her sphere of influence, and she said, I have this elderly friend. I wish she'd have said, I have this friend.
This friend, right.
But she said elderly who
Yes.
needs this distilled water really badly because of medical reasons. And I want you to know, she called all of her sphere of influence. She spent one entire day picking up gallons of distilled water. A lot of them had an extra gallon in their home, and the rest of them went out and searched the stores, and every now and then one of them would find a store that was restocking. And one sphere of influence person talked the store into letting them have 2 instead of 1. It was just amazing. Do you know I ended up with 103 gallons of distilled water on my front porch?
Wow.
Now, isn't that just the greatest story in the world?
Yes.
Are you depriving your people of getting to help because they're bored with Netflix, they're sick of Facebook, and they want to do something constructive and they're stuck at home, and it's up to you to help them figure out what to do? And let me tell you 2 more stories real quick. We had an agent die in another region on day before yesterday of coronavirus. And he left a 12-year-old daughter who needs a college fund. Now that little girl, you know, is faced with funeral expenses. There wasn't much money in savings. They're faced with serious medical expenses because he was on a ventilator. And the Market Center didn't have much in their little local care fund. You know, you're supposed to have a local fund to help your people when stuff happens. And then KW Cares kicks in when it's really big.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, they didn't have much fun. And I was talking to the team leader, and he was still teary from the death of that agent because the agent was beloved in the office and everybody liked him. And I said, well, hon, here's what you can do. Get your people rallied around your GoFundMe, and you've raised $3,000 so far. Have them all call their sphere of influence. Just have them tell the story of what happened, how they need help. And sure enough, their GoFundMe shot up. See, they gave their people an opportunity to help someone. Because everybody in Tennessee, they love to help people. One more story. There's a market center who is doing, for Red Day, they're doing save a business kind of a concept, and they decided to start it early.
Okay.
So they picked 2 restaurants that they love in that market center, and they started it right away. So they all called their sphere of influence and said, you know what? We're trying to help save 2 businesses that we love. We love a lot of businesses, but we just picked 2 of them. And we want to know if your family would consider doing drive-by pickup food from these 2 restaurants. And the people responded in such a powerful way that the owners of those 2 restaurants called the real estate office and said, what in the world are you doing? Everybody's driving up, doing, what do you call it when you drive up? Pickup.
Takeout, yeah.
Takeout. They're doing takeout, and they all say Keller Williams sent them. So what are you doing? Whatever it is, keep doing it, because we may not have to close our doors.
Wow.
Are you getting it some more?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, you can ask me questions now.
Well, to me, it's those stories are just a sign of our culture, and what you were describing as the DNA of a Keller Williams agent. I think oftentimes, though, the word culture just gets thrown around as in that's not good culture, or that's not, that person wouldn't be in culture, or even just outside of KW. So when you talk about culture, what does culture mean to you?
It's the list of 54 things we do. And it used to be called What is Culture? That piece used to be called What is Culture? And they changed the name of it. And what's the new name? Culture in Action. I think which is a better name.
Mm-hmm.
And it's real simple. You look at that page. If y'all are doing all that stuff, you are fabulously in culture. And if you're not, you need to get in culture. But you see, when agents never see the page, they don't know what it is. I don't expect them to memorize all that. I expect every single person in your market center to know the Y4C2Ts by memory. And what's happening to us is a lot of new team leaders do not know what the Y4C2Ts is, so they're having all these new agents come in who never ever learn it. And if you've been with Keller Williams a long time, you know how important it has been for us to learn that. Back in my day as CEO, I'd go in offices and I'd look at an agent and I'd say, give me the Y4C2Ts, and they could rattle it off 99% of the time. If somebody was pretty new, because back then I said, team leaders, you don't make them memorize it. How are they ever going to know it?
Yeah.
And on the 54 thing page, all the agents need is a copy of it, just so you can look at it once in a while and kind of check off on it. And a team leader should have the ALC take turns standing up and saying the first 3 things on the 54 page, what they mean to me are. Wouldn't take more than a minute. And then another ALC member stands up and says, let me tell you what win-win or no deal means to me. And then the next week, another agent takes 3 more things on the page, and another agent. You just do it over and over. And you do that kind of stuff, Ryan, for as long as you live. Because it's all based on eternal truths that will never change. If we ever reach a point where win-win or no deal is not a big deal, integrity, do the right thing is not a big deal, then we're so out of culture, it's pathetic.
Right. So if you only had one word or one trait or one characteristic that defined a positive culture in a company or in a market center, what one word or one trait or one characteristic would that be?
Well, I wouldn't be able to do it with one, but let me give you one since you've asked for one. I'd give them more than one, but I
Give us more than one.
The most important thing to remember is that success is results through people. For the single agent who doesn't have an assistant, they don't have a team, your success is totally dependent through your sphere of influence. They're your people. If you have a big team, then your success is through your team members who go through your people, buyers and sellers. A team leader's success is totally based on how successful your agents are, who go through their team members, if they have any, who go through their people. So success through people is, along with several other things, is the secret sauce of our company. And a lot of people don't grasp that. They still don't know what success is. It's always through somebody else. You can't be successful all by yourself. If you're a real estate agent and you don't have any buyers or sellers, you are not successful. It's ultimately going through your buyers and sellers to buy houses and sell houses. And this crisis provides you the greatest opportunity we've ever had in the history of the world to be successful through your people, your team, if you have one, or your assistant, if you have one, and your sphere of influence, because they're your people and the people you meet, except you're cooped up in a house and you aren't meeting very many right now. So you take advantage of the hundreds or thousands you have in your database. Man, there's never been a time. Getting a call from you makes their day because they are so bored. Call them up and say, hey, do you need a new Netflix thing? Well, Pole Dark is real good. You might want to try it. And then you say, I got this, we have this cute as the bug, little 3-bed, 2-bath home in our inventory. It may not even be your listing. It may be, Rachel, it may not be your listing. It may be Frank's listing. Who knows? And you say, we got this cute as the bug little listing, and I'm looking for some grandmas and grandpas. I think I said that a while ago. Did I say that while ago?
No, I didn't hear that one.
Oh, okay. It was to the last group. Excuse me. I get my groups mixed up with what I've said. I'm looking for some grandmas and grandpas who have little grandkids, because usually those grandmas and grandpas still have some money, maybe.
Yeah.
And I want them to buy this cute, precious house that would be a fabulous rental. Because when the market opens back up, when the market opens back up, it's going to go like that. And I'm looking for grandmas and grandpas, and they buy it, use it as a little rental, gives them something to do. Then when the little grandchild grows up and goes to college, they sell it. They take the money that they've made on the house and put it in the college fund. Do you have any grandmas and grandmas that live down the street from you that I can? Well, hey, we might be interested in that. I know some agents that are selling investment property out the kazoo, just sitting on the phone at home in this crisis. Or you call them and say, you know, how are you doing? Do you have any friends that are running out of money? You know, they've lost their jobs and they're running out of money. I've got this fabulous checklist on how you do a refinance. Keller Williams Realty International gave it to us. Do you have a copy of it, Ryan?
I can get them one.
Every agent in your office should have one of those, so they can call their people and say, do you have anybody, any of your friends, you know, if they're close friends, you'll know if they're running out of money, because one great way to get a hold of cash is to refinance if they have any equity in their home. And I have this fabulous checklist, and they'll say, well, we're about to run out of money, or they'll say, yeah, I do know somebody. My nephew's about to run out of money. Well, you know, this is a great checklist, and I'd love to be able to talk your nephew through the steps of refinance. And see, that's why Keller Williams made that checklist, is to give people another tool to use with their sphere of influence. And then say, would you call your nephew and find out if it's okay if I call them? Because see, you want them to give a recommendation on you before you make that call.
Yeah.
And it's working great for a lot of people who are using it. We just have thousands of people who aren't using it. And people are desperate to refinance. A lot of people are. You saw on TV the lines at the food bank, and they weren't standing 6 feet apart, and it went on for blocks and blocks and blocks. People need your help. And instead of asking them, you can always say, who do you know?
Who do you know that I can help?
Who do you know that I can help, so that you're not putting them on the spot? And then if they're really hurting, they'll say, well, I am.
Yeah. Speaking of those
sure help you.
tools, speaking of those resources, you know, sort of what we were talking about, the DNA of a KW associate that we discussed earlier, I believe is evident in our team meeting today, where we had a red day auction. We also have KW Cares and KW Kids Can. From the local level, we hear and we talk about these programs of culture. However, a lot of us weren't around when they were founded. And we may have missed out on what the original thought was, and what the original process was, and what the original purpose was. And can you talk about KW Cares and all the good that it's doing, and the impact that it's having around our nation, and what you've seen it do for not only our agents, for the communities that they live in?
Well, it started in the Austin Southwest Market Center, and they just raised money every year, and they stuck it in a bank account, and they called it KW Cares. And then if there was a funeral, you know, of some family member and they couldn't afford to pay for the funeral, well, they'd take money out and help them pay for the funeral. And it functioned just like KW Cares functions almost. And finally, Mary Tennant came to me when I was CEO, and she said, Mo, this is really working. Every year we have a golf tournament, or we have a garage sale, or we do something to make money. And she said, could you take this idea and make it so every single market center that we have could have a KW Cares? And I said, well, sure. So I took her little idea, and it was just a little one-page thing of what they had done. And I called an attorney who specializes in 501c3 501c3s. And I said, I want you to make a 501c3 for us so that when agents do this, I can teach them about tithing, and then we can have a national fund that can help out on, the really big things. Taking dinner to somebody when they're sick, we can't do because
Sure.
we're not there.
Right.
So anyway, he set up the bylaws and he set up our entity for KW Cares. So then a short time later, Katrina, and then I taught the market centers. I had like calls with each region and their team leaders and OPs. And I said, this is how it can work. I want to challenge you to do a project that will raise $30,000. And they go, oh, that's a lot. And I said, well, it may be for you, but it's not for a lot of the people I've talked to. They think they can raise 40 or 50. Wendy Harrelson says she can raise 100,000. So,
Right.
I'd challenge them
Yeah.
on it. And I'd say, when you raise your 30, I want you to send a tithe, because God will bless our company if we're tithing. Send a tithe to KW Cares, because I can make it if you'll just send me 3,000 out of your 30,000. Then you keep the 27,000 and have your ALC decide how much of that you're going to keep to help people in your market center who may have trials and problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want it to be tax deductible, then you go to your attorney and have him set it up for your market center. It'll cost a little bit of money, but it'll be worth it, because then the agents can give to your little fund if they want to, and it'll be tax deductible. National, is tax deductible. And I said, then take a portion of your 27,000 and go bless the socks off of somebody in your community, your favorite charity, your favorite ministry. Let the ALC choose who they want to give it to, and go surprise them and give it to them. And then maybe when Red Day comes, you'll do something else for them. It was just an idea. Well, everybody raised their $30,000, and everybody gave me their 3,000. Wendy raised 100,000. She sent 10,000 in, because that's a tithe, of 100,000. And it just caught on like wildfire. And I knew God was going to bless it because they responded so well.
Right.
Well, then Katrina hit. And I went into Gary's office and I said, Gary, I need $5 million and I need it tomorrow morning. We have 368 agents that we can't find. They're somewhere, and I don't think they're dead. We just can't find them because, see, we weren't texting back then. Texting was brand new back when Katrina hit.
Sure.
And I said, Gary, I need these millions of dollars. And I said, I'm going to have a huge call, all OPs, all team leaders, all MCAs. So I got all my people on a conference call, and I said, folks, I need $5 million, and here's how we can do it. Every agent needs to give $100. If they can't afford it because they're brand new and they don't have much money and all that, please ask your really good agents if they'd be willing to give more than 100 to kind of make up for the people who can't give the 100. Or tell the agents to go mow a lawn and make some money. Or tell agents to make jewelry and sell it. Or tell agents to go sell old books. And maybe they could give $50 and a better agent could give a little more to make up the difference. But I gotta have the equivalent of $100 per agent, and I gotta have it tomorrow morning, except I know that's not realistic. And they heard the urgency in my voice. And what's so funny is I had a bunch of team leaders no, I had a bunch of owners, I think, in an owners meeting in Austin, and there were 200 or 300 because we were smaller back then.
Yeah.
And I just went in front of them and I said, you all, the dam has broke. New Orleans is underwater. We're going to have funerals to pay for. We're going to have to buy clothes. We're going to have to buy toothbrushes for our people. Help. I need money. And I got $40,000 that day.
Wow.
And so when Katrina happened, I only had $200,000 in the bank. So boy, we started really pushing to raise money for KW Cares. And so I kept putting money in a certain account in the bank so that I would have money for the disasters, you know, the huge disasters,
Right.
like the Joplin tornado, like the California fires, like the hurricanes. And then we had our kitty filling up so that we could give a lot of grants. And one of my favorite grant stories, oh, I'll never forget it, was a husband and wife team in Colorado were celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary, and they got in their car, drove to the restaurant, and on the way to the restaurant, a random gang drove by their car and randomly shot them. The husband was not hurt. The wife is now a paraplegic, and they had no health insurance. And over the course of that horrible, horrible, horrible event, the Market Center helped him, the region helped him, and KW Cares, I think, gave him a total of 4 grants, which was a lot of money. And he eventually had to quit the business. And I think they're trying to live on some family help and disability or something.
Yeah.
Because she has to have full-time care. Tragic, tragic, tragic. I could tell you story after story after story.
Well, we've seen it a couple times within our market center.
Oh, I'm so
where
glad because
we've been able to help
know.
people with grants. When New Bern had the hurricanes over there, we housed 2 agents from their market center in the condos in a nearby city of ours. And actually one of the ladies ended up having her baby at one of our local hospitals. And food, I don't know, a number of our agents who were here at the time were buying baby gifts and diapers and newborn clothes and just onesies and whatever we could take up there to them. So Kathy had a huge hand in that. And so and speaking of money and speaking of Red Day as well, Mo, in our team meeting this morning, usually we do sort of an in-person inspirational breakfast themed team meeting. However, obviously this morning we did a virtual team meeting, and in 17 minutes, we raised $6,967 in a virtual team meeting fundraiser for the Boys and Girls Club here in one of our local communities. So it's just
that's wonderful.
Our folks and their hearts, and you know, a number of folks are out showing property and things like that. So that's not the full gamut, but just to know that within literally 17 minutes that money was raised, and it was just a checklist of, all right, they need this, this is on the list. Check. I'll take those 4 items. I'll take those 4. So it's amazing to see a company come together amidst the crisis and a pandemic. And so speaking of Red Day 2020, what are your thoughts?
Red Day 2020 is going to be May 14, and it's going to be the greatest opportunity we have ever had to get every single agent involved in whatever you all decide what you want to do. If it's a continuation of your Boys and Girls Club or whatever it is. it's just amazing what people are doing. Some market centers, their red day is going to be to buy masks, because now they're saying that we ought to wear them. When they told us we didn't need to wear them, I thought that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, because if they want doctors to wear them, why shouldn't we be wearing them?
Sure.
Anyway, Colette Chang, who is a regional director in California, her husband makes masks, and they've done these wonderful masks with KW on them. I don't know how expensive they are, but if you want me to, Ryan, if you'll send me an email asking for the link, because I don't have your email, I'll send you the link. And there's a bunch of offices that are buying masks, at least a few of them, to take to their sphere of influence. And the ones that live in town, they're just going to put them in a cute little sack and put them on their front porch and ring the doorbell. And then go back to their car. And they're telling their people, it gives them a reason to call on them and say, you know, we're bringing enough masks for your family. You know, it just depends on how many the agents can afford to buy, because a lot of agents are running low on money. So they may not be able to buy any. But it's a project that a bunch of them have, and I don't know if they're getting them from Colette or not, but at least those masks have the KW on them. They're pretty cute.
Nice.
But he makes masks, as you know, for hospitals as well as for Colette. And when I heard she had these great masks, I said, well, let me tell other market centers about it. So, and then they're adopting businesses, you know, like I told a while ago, they're doing everything in the world. But see, we've never, ever had 100% participation. And I want the agent who never comes to a team meeting and who isn't involved and probably should be de-hired because they're not doing anything. I want them involved in Red Day. Everybody. And this is the year we can do that. Because you can do all this stuff virtually. And so thank God we can do this stuff virtually. You know, it's just wonderful that we can.
Well, Mo, I know.
I'm sure I answered your question.
Yeah, I think you did. Thank you. I know you are heading to a meeting with Gary Keller here in the next couple of minutes. So we are just very pleased and very thankful for your time. Where can folks go to find you, find your book, and connect with you?
You can buy it on Amazon, and if you have Prime Amazon, you'll get it the next day. That's where most people buy it. And then I always have a book signing at Family Reunion every year. So, you know, if you buy one on Amazon, then you want me to sign it, just come get in the line and I'll be happy to sign it for you. There have been 45,000 books sold so far. Nothing like Gary's, you know, 20 zillion that he's sold, but that's pretty good for us. I wrote it in my 70s, and I'm sort of proud that it's done that well.
I think you have a lot to be proud of. Well, Mo, thank you so much.
You all are wonderful. I love Tennessee.
I'm going to unmute our folks, and they can just pour some love on you and say thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mo.
I hope it created a little bit of fire in your belly that you'll really get with the program. I'm sure you've been wonderful, but I just want you to go to the next level and call in your sphere.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you, Mo.
Thank you. Bye. I love you all.
We love you.
you.
Okay. Bye-bye.